I was supposed to wear white because silence runs in our family like tradition. But the veil carried more than fabric, it carried the lives we never questioned. So when I said no, the world didn't fall apart. It finally got quiet enough for me to breathe. I always knew I'd wear white. Not because I believed in fairy tales. Because in my family, white was survival. You marry. You obey. You disappear behind a smile. My name's Julia. I'm 25. And I was supposed to get married this Saturday. The invitations were sent. The dress was fitted. The seating chart caused 2 fights and a mild stroke. But something was wrong. Not with the man. Not even with the plan. With the silence in my chest. The quiet part of me that used to dream. She stopped talking. They say trauma doesn't start with a scream. Sometimes it starts with a seam. The women in my family don't talk about their weddings. Just their rings. Their recipes. Their prescriptions. My grandmother was 17 when she married. My mom was 19. My older sister, Rachel, beat them both at 16, a courthouse elopement in her boyfriend's truck. That marriage lasted 11 months and 4 black eyes. But no one ever called it abuse. They called it passion. When I got engaged to Ethan, everyone acted like I'd won. He's steady. He's handsome. He doesn't drink. He comes from good people. No one asked how I felt. Because that's not a question women get to answer in my family. We feel grateful. Or we're shamed. The last Sunday before the wedding, my mom brought me her veil. It was wrapped in tissue and smells like lavender soap and talcum powder. The same scent that lingered after she locked herself in the bathroom every time Dad shouted loud enough to shake the cabinets. She said, I wore this when I became a woman. And I wanted to scream, I don't want to become the kind of woman this veil creates. Instead, I smiled. I folded it. I said thank you. You probably think I should have run right then. I wish I had. But in my family, we practice obedience like it's an heirloom. So I went to my final fitting. I nodded when the seamstress said, you're glowing. I let the zipper close behind me, even though it pinched my skin. That night, I woke up at 2:13 a.m., drenched in sweat, and knew I couldn't go through with it. But how do you escape a wedding that's not just yours, but your mother's redemption, your grandmother's legacy, and your sister's apology? You ever realize the ceremony isn't for you, it's to fix the mistakes you never made? The veil was still on my pillow the next morning. Folded. Perfect. And suffocating. I picked up the dress. And the zipper wouldn't close. They say nerves feel like butterflies. Mine felt like rope. Tight. Hidden. Quiet until you move too fast. The morning after the dress fitting, I sat on the edge of my bed with the veil still folded beside me. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the floor-length mirror Mom insisted I keep. A lady should see herself in full. But I didn't see myself. I saw my mother's wedding photo behind me. She was 19, wearing the same veil. Standing next to a man who would one day throw a beer bottle at her during Thanksgiving. She was smiling in the photo. A perfect, tragic smile, the kind that's rehearsed, like a hymn. I whispered, you look so young. And then I whispered, so did I. That's when I noticed it. The corner of the mirror frame had a chip in it, a clean break. Like something had hit it. Or someone. I ran my fingers over it and something underneath snagged my nail. Peeling fabric. Floral print. Faded. I pulled gently. A folded slip of paper was wedged into the back panel. Yellowed. Creased. One word. Cursive. Run. No signature. No date. Just that one word, like a breath held too long. My heart didn't race. It dropped. I looked around the room, my childhood room, and realized I didn't know half the stories it held. Not really. The pink wallpaper my mom picked. The jewelry box from Nana. The ballerina print over the desk. I started seeing them as evidence. Of silence. Of survival. That afternoon I went to visit Rachel. She lives 2 towns over in a duplex she rarely invites us to. Her kids were watching cartoons. Her husband wasn't home. She looked tired in a permanent way. When I told her I was getting nervous about the wedding, she didn't smile. She just stared at the TV and said, it gets easier when you stop asking yourself what you want. Then she reached into the drawer and handed me a photo. It was of Nana. On her wedding day. Same veil. Same look. Except this one had something extra, a hand on her back. Firm. Possessive. And you could tell she didn't want to be touched. I asked Rachel where she got the photo. She just said she gave it to me the day before my wedding. Told me I'd understand someday. I sat in the car afterward for 45 minutes. Not crying. Not shaking. Just thinking. What if I'm the first woman in our family who doesn't understand this tradition? What if that's the only way to break it? You ever feel like everyone around you got handed a script, and you're the only one who forgot your lines? The photo of Nana sat on my passenger seat the whole ride home. Face up. Watching me. That night, I opened the wedding gift from my mother. And inside was something she said belonged to all of us. A pair of gloves. Still stained with foundation. Still warm. Some objects don't feel like things. They feel like warnings. The gloves weren't white. They were ivory, aged by decades of sweat, foundation, and fear. And they smell faintly of rose powder and anxiety. My mother handed them to me with ceremony. Your grandmother wore these when she met your grandfather. They're part of our history. I nodded. Took them. Thanked her. But when I touched the inside lining, I felt something sticky. And when I held them up to the light, I saw the makeup stains weren't just from tears or powder. There was something darker in the creases. Something that looked like old blood. I didn't ask, because I already knew the answer would be gentle and violent at the same time. That night, I laid them on my dresser next to the veil. A little shrine to quiet suffering. And something in me cracked. Not loudly. Not with rage. But like a hairline fracture under pressure, the kind that only shows when the whole thing finally shatters. The next morning, I called my great-aunt Joni. She's the only woman in my family who never married. She moved to Oregon in her 20s and found God in silence, as my mother likes to say with an eye roll. I hadn't spoken to her in 3 years. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice sounded like sandpaper and honey. I told her about the gloves. About the note in the mirror. About the photo. About the wedding dress I hadn't tried on since the zipper caught my skin. She didn't ask if I was okay. She said, "You know, Julia, when your grandmother gave me that veil, I set it on fire in a field. And no one ever asked me to wear it again." Silence. Then she added, "Don't let ghosts pick your husband." I sat on the floor of my closet after the call. The wedding dress was hanging 2 inches from my face. And for the first time, I saw it not as a symbol of celebration, but a relic of containment. Ethan texted, "My mom wants to know if you're still okay with reading the vows out loud." I stared at the screen. Typed, "Yes." Deleted it. Typed, "We need to talk." Deleted that too. What I wrote instead was, "Can I ask you something? Would you still marry me if I didn't wear white?" He didn't reply. For 3 hours. When he did, it was one sentence. "I just want everything to be perfect." That was the moment I knew. He didn't understand. And maybe never would. Not about the gloves. Not about the veil. Not about what it takes to stand in a dress zone from generations of silence and say I do. You ever realize you're the only one in the room who knows what this really means? The gloves slid off the dresser that night. I didn't pick them up. At 3:21 a.m., I got a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But the voice on the other end wasn't Ethan. It was Rachel. And she said only one thing. "Don't do it." People kept saying I looked calm. That I was handling things with grace. That they admired my strength. I made coffee. I responded to texts. I even smiled when Ethan's mother called to check in. What I didn't do was mention the dress. Or the voicemail. Or the fact that I hadn't slept in my own bed since Tuesday. Rachel's message was still in my phone. 5 words. "Don't do it. Please don't." No explanation. No follow-up. I tried to call her back twice. She didn't answer. Instead, I folded napkins. Rechecked the guest list. Took a deep breath every time someone said the word bride. On Friday, I moved into the hotel near the venue. Mom helped me unpack. She hung my gown in the closet and said, "You're the first woman in our family to do it right." I don't know what right meant. I didn't ask. That night, I opened the closet just to see if the zipper still stuck. It didn't. But I did. I kept hearing Great Aunt Joni's voice. "Don't let ghosts pick your husband." And I realized maybe I already had. Not Ethan himself, but the idea of Ethan. The safe one. The quiet one. The one who didn't yell or drink or leave. And maybe that was enough for my mother. But it wasn't enough for me. You probably think I should have left then. Thrown the veil out the window. Booked a flight and vanished. But this isn't a movie. This is a room that smells like hydrangeas and dry shampoo with a dress bag that makes a plastic hiss when you touch it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat on the hotel floor in my robe and made a list. Not of what I wanted, but of what I didn't want to become. 1. My grandmother's voice when she said, "We may do." 2. My mother's silence when Dad slammed a door. 3. Rachel's eyes that day I told her Ethan was gentle. 4. My own face in the mirror, blinking back obedience. That night, I didn't dream. I woke up to a knock on the door. Room service. I hadn't ordered anything. It was a single envelope on a tray. No name. No sender. Inside was a photo. Me at 7 years old. Dressed as a bride for Halloween. Standing between my mom and Dad. He's smiling. She's not. My veil is crooked. And I'm looking up, not at them, but straight at the camera. Right at whoever was holding it. You ever look at a picture of yourself and realize she already knew what you'd become? The photo slid off the tray and landed face down. I left it there. The morning of the wedding, I unzipped the garment bag. The dress was there. But the veil was missing. And in its place was a note. 4 words. Same handwriting as before. You don't know them. No one noticed I skipped breakfast. No one noticed I didn't wear mascara. They noticed my silence. But they mistook it for nerves. I didn't correct them. At 10:24 a.m., my mother knocked on the hotel door. She didn't wait for me to answer, she just walked in. She held the veil. Folded. Pressed. Not a wrinkle on it. She smiled and said, I found it. Must have fallen behind the dresser. I said nothing. She walked around the room like she owned the air. Adjusting things. Checking the light. Moving my bouquet a quarter-inch to the left. Then she turned to me and asked, Are you ready? Her voice was light, but her eyes were measuring me like I was a product she had almost finished assembling. I stood in the center of the room, wearing the dress, holding the note. She saw the paper in my hand and froze. Not because she recognized it, because I think she remembered writing something similar once. To someone who never ran. I don't think I can do this, I said. Her smile didn't even twitch. You're just overwhelmed, she replied. She stepped closer. Reached for the veil. I took a step back. Something flickered in her face. Not rage. Not fear. Annoyance. Like a fly she couldn't swat. You have to understand, she said, you've been given everything we never had. I almost laughed. Almost. But I didn't. Because this wasn't a scene. It was a reckoning. I held the veil out and let it drop to the floor between us. It landed softly. Like silk resignation. She stared at it. Then back at me. No shouting. No tears. She picked it up, folded it again, and whispered. You'll regret this when you're older. I looked her straight in the face. And said, maybe. But at least it'll be my regret. She didn't answer. She left the room holding the veil like a dead thing wrapped in lace. You ever win an argument by saying nothing and realize that silence has teeth? The dress still fit. But it no longer felt like mine. It felt like hers. I sat down. Removed the shoes. And for the first time all morning I breathed. Then the hotel phone rang. Ethan was in the lobby. And he was asking for me by my full name. Not bride. Not baby. Just Julia. By 2 p.m. the news had spread. Not that the wedding was canceled. But that I had canceled it. The difference was everything. First came the texts. Some polite. Some pointed. Just heard. Are you okay? I hope this wasn't a panic thing. Wow. That poor man. Then came the silence, louder than any reply. Ethan didn't come upstairs. He waited in the lobby for half an hour. Left a voicemail I never opened. Dropped off the ring with the front desk. No note. Just a velvet box and absence. My mother refused to speak to me. She walked out of the hotel with her head held high, like she had just survived something tragic. Dad texted, You embarrassed your mother. Fix it. Rachel never called. But she sent a photo. A single bobby pin on a countertop. My niece had been playing dress up. Caption, she said she wants to be a bride like Aunt Julia. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I did neither. Instead I packed. Not just my things but the dress. I put it back in the garment bag, zipped it slowly, then slid it under the bed in the hotel room. I left a note for housekeeping. Do not return to sender. That evening I walked through the city in jeans and no makeup. No one stared. No one whispered. Because out here I was just a woman. Not a disappointment. Not a runaway bride. Not the broken link in a golden chain. I bought a hot dog from a street cart. Sat on a bench. Watched a little girl drop her pretzel and burst into tears. Her dad picked it up, dusted it off, and gave it back with a kiss on the forehead. He didn't say you're overreacting. He didn't say make do. He just let her feel. And I thought, maybe there's still a world where softness isn't punished. You probably think I felt proud. Or relieved. But no. I felt empty. Because when you spend your whole life preparing to carry a burden, putting it down doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like dropping a name you don't remember choosing. The dress bag stayed under that bed. Like a ghost I refused to house. That night, I opened my email. Subject line. About the note in the mirror. Sender. Joni. Some stories don't end. They unravel. Thread by thread. Promise by promise. You think cutting the cord is the end, but it's just the beginning of hearing your own voice clearly without the hum of expectation. Joni's email wasn't long. Just 2 paragraphs. She said she was the one who left the note in the mirror. She said she'd snuck into the house the night before my grandmother's funeral, that she'd always wondered who would find it next. Turns out it was you, she wrote. And that gives me peace I never thought I'd get. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't need to say anything. Sometimes surviving is the response. I moved out of the hotel the next morning. Rented a tiny 1-bedroom near the college library. Painted the wall sage green. One of the first nights alone, I pulled out my childhood scrapbook. Inside was a drawing I made at age 8. Me in a big dress. No veil. No groom. Just me. Holding a book. The title scrawled in crayon. How to be free. I didn't remember drawing it, but my hand knew that shape. Even then, Ethan never reached out again. His sister texted once. You should have told us you were broken before wasting everyone's time. I didn't answer. Instead, I lit a small candle and sat with the silence. No prayers. No apologies. Just a woman in an apartment she chose, eating dinner alone and not mistaking that for failure. The gloves are gone. I threw them in a river near Joni's cabin 2 weekends ago. The veil is still folded, but not out of reverence. Out of choice. And the dress? I kept the zipper, cut it off with sewing scissors and turned it into a keychain. A reminder. Not all locks are meant to close. The zipper is smooth now, cold in my hand. Mine,